Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Mark Hansen to the Finance Marketing Podcast. Now, Mark is not just any guest. He's someone that I have had the pleasure of working with in multiple different capacities. First, as a client of mine, I had the opportunity to write Mark's website and ebook copy for his new firm when he was first launching. And it didn't take long for me to thoroughly sell myself on his services and his personality so that my husband and I actually ended up becoming clients of his. And we still call him our financial advisor today. So Mark is the founder and head financial advisor at Second Comma. He is also the host of The Quiet Part, which is a podcast that dives into how non-money topics affect our money in lots of different ways. And if you want to embed your personality in your branding, teach prospects who you are, and really solidify your online presence, then in Mark's words, turn up your Walkman because we're about to learn a lot from him. So Mark specializes in lifting the burden of personal finance off the shoulders of his ideal clients who are six-figure single-income families with little kiddos running around. Now, our conversation was so full of great insights and peeks behind the curtain into Mark's branding and marketing that we ended up chatting together for over an hour. So we decided to split this episode into two parts to make sure that you don't miss a single detail. So in this episode, in part one, Mark is sharing his journey from leaving the corporate grind to building a financial planning firm from scratch that's all about family time and simplicity. And he's going to walk us through how the concept of Second Comma was born and how intentional branding, right down to the colors and the logo, has become a powerful tool for attracting the right clients. Now, Mark's approach to branding isn't just about looking good. It's about creating a connection that starts a conversation and keeps people coming back and wanting to learn more about him. So without further ado, let's dive in. Mark, I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thank you so much for sharing some of your time with me this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. The honor is all mine. Don't worry.
Well, I'm really excited to kind of dive into your story because you and I have sort of an interesting relationship. I would say a much closer relationship than I have with most of my guests, and I'll share what that is in a little bit. But I would love to start if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Second Comma and everything that we need to know to understand this is Mark.
Yeah, definitely. So Second Comma is really a response to me getting tired of other people's opinions and thoughts, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be employed in regular America, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And eventually I got to a point where we were growing. We started a family. And I kept getting bosses that just really didn't care about that. And they didn't care about the fact that I wanted to be home more than, I think on my best days with little traffic, I'd see my kids for about an hour and a half a day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just leaving me really empty. And I realized this wasn't going to work. And then we went to another meeting with my boss, and I kind of found out that he thought because of the salary that they paid me that they owned me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you don't, right? You don't do that. And so I stepped away and I actually started talking to a guy at church who was a financial planner. And he said, you should do this. You'd be really good at it. He thought I had a good base knowledge. He thought I had a personality that would fit. So when my boss essentially tells me, hey, I own you, and I say, no, you don't, I turned in my notice and I called and said, I'm ready to be a financial planner. And that's really what started the idea and the journey of, well, then what is this thing called? How does it function? Who does it help? And if I flash forward, right, the punchline is going to be that Second Comma is a company that is optimized for quality family time. That's going to be mine and my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I'm optimizing everything for quality family time because that's what I realized was missing in my life. And I do that for my clients because I think other people are experiencing exactly what I was experiencing, but not everybody is ready to be a business owner or wants to be a business owner, but they might want to optimize where they are. So I started figuring out, how does a company come around people that are in situations I was in and help them? And so the tagline of my company is I help people in their 30s spend the next 30 years preparing for their last 30 years. And second comma is all about doing things simply and intentionally, right? Doing things systematically and programmatically, all those fancy words. But really, all we're trying to do is get to an answer that makes sense quickly, because a lot of my clients have young families, they're growing families, and they don't want the 4-hour answer when 20 minutes will suffice. And so that's really a good 30,000 foot view of how I operate. Where else can I fill in the gaps there?
I really love that, Mark. And I think what you're doing is pretty unique in the financial advisory space. It's changing a little bit where, more people are interested in working with younger families. But, I think for the majority, there's a lot of advisors out there who are still just, I want to take the retirees and the pre-retirees. They're the ones with the money. That's it. So I love what you're doing. I'd love to ask you a little bit more about how did you come up with the name Second Comma? And once you had the name in mind, what did you do then to kind of get your business started?
That was actually, it's going to sound silly, but it was just a throwaway line from when I was sitting with my buddy. So he's a marketing guy. He does marketing, AT&T, big companies, right? He was on their marketing teams. And I was sitting with him and we were trying to think of what's the name for this thing? What do I call it? How do I go to market essentially? And he said, "Well, what are you trying to help people understand?" And I said, "I want people to understand this is not taking $5,000 and making it $10,000. This is not becoming some kind of money miser and saving every dollar and not enjoying life today. These are like a series of decisions that you could make that, the scale of it's huge. Like it could be a second comma in your net worth if you do this for long enough." And then I sat back and I was thinking, second comma would be a really cool name for a company. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some Googling. Nobody owned it. Most of the handles were available on social media. So I was like, all right, this is what we're doing. I am second comma because it draws a question. It explains that this is a long game. This is a long, slow obedience in the same direction. It's not flashy. It's not any of the stuff you see hitting the market. These are the habits that we're going to do for the next 20, 30 years to get to retirement. And I loved that. I loved how much was in there. From there, I said, okay, I've got the name. Now I need the look and the feel. And I am good enough to find the like the palette maker online and generate some palettes and start isolating certain colors, but I'm not good enough to tell a story in colors. And so I actually reached out to another company to help me figure out, okay, what does the logo look like? Why does it look like that? What are the colors? What's the colorway of my branding kit? I wanted the whole kit. And I started learning about something called visual literacy, which was not at all in my education. And it's much more from film production, but it made so much sense. Talking about colors and tones and how the colors work together and what is the spacing. And I loved all of it. And I learned so much about visual literacy, but I still had to reach out to an expert to say, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking. What do I go with? But what I came back with was a branding logo sheet and a branding sheet in general saying, these are the colors of the company. And I specifically wanted something that was normal. So it's got a large navy color, but I really wanted this. I call it electric salmon. I think the real color is like coral, but I call it electric salmon. I was like, this color has to be in there. And I told the designer, make everything around this color. I don't care what the rest looks like. It needs to be business-like, but it needs to be a little block party. It needs to be serious, but it also like, you're not going to fall asleep. I was like, whatever that is in colors, that's what I need. And what's crazy is when you find an expert who's really good at what they do, you can say things like that and they will give you back the colorway that you now see for second comma.
Yeah, I find this so fascinating because I also, I'm a marketing person, but I'm not a visual marketing person. So when I also had this experience with my designer, when I first designed my own website, I did it myself. I picked like a Squarespace color palette option out of the 12 that they had. Hated it from the get-go, but I was like, we just need to get this going, And then I had a similar experience when I went to her and I was like, this is really like I feel like the persona of my brand. I feel like this is, who I want to come across as. And she came up with this beautiful color palette that I never ever would have thought of. So you have the electric salmon. Describe a little bit more, just because, my podcast is totally audio and I can't, overlay what your branding looks like for video yet. Hopefully that will come down the road. describe a little bit more what other colors are in your palette, and then also what your logo looks like. And then I'll have a follow-up question for you once you give us that description.
Okay. So yes, when I had it was just what was interesting about it was just a conversation like this. We're talking back and forth, me and the designer,
Mm-hmm.
and then he comes back and presents this package to me. And the package is the logo, and the logo is so he was walking me through. The company's called Second Comma, so he took the comma shape and he made it as elementary as possible. And he said he kept taking away details of the comma until he finally took away a line and it didn't look like a comma anymore. And then he added that line back in and he got down to what he thought was the basic principles of being the shape of a comma.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he wanted that because I said simplicity so many times when I was talking to him. These are simple concepts. These are simple strategies. And these are simple conversations. And he said he wanted to represent that in the logo. And so he got down to where he had the one, and then he kept trying to figure out, like, where do I put the second comma? He couldn't figure out, where do I hide the second comma in this?
Mm-hmm.
And he actually wound up just stacking two commas on top of each other. And so one is the electric salmon color. The second comma is actually smaller and is completely visible, not invisible. It's invisible, as in you see straight through it. Whatever that word is, the opposite of opaque. I don't know what that's called, but that's
Transparent.
there we go.
Yeah.
There's a big word. So the second one is in the middle and it's transparent. So if you look at my logo, it's kind of like a comma donut, but it is two commas stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
And then he started talking about the font that he selected, and it's very, very simplistic. It's something along the lines of Roboto, very thin, and it is, again, simple, easy, very digestible. I wanted something that could be put on a lot of different things because branding wise, I wanted to wear my logo everywhere. I have it on hats. I have it on shirts. We had a family reunion a couple of weeks ago, and the running joke was, did Mark start a financial planning firm or did he start a clothing company? Because I have it's on a lot of stuff. I'm very proud of what was designed for me, and I like to show it. And then the color palette is, again, the electric salmon, and then a really cool navy color. It's not navy, capital NAVY. It's something different than that. I don't know how to describe it more than that. And then it's a series of shades that are kind of a gray and navy mixture. And then it's a very light gray color. And then what was given back to me, again, branding wise, was how to use these colors in ratio with each other. And that was really cool. Where, the branding guide says the whole thing isn't navy, but the whole thing isn't electric salmon. It's a mixture of those two. And then back to visual literacy, how you mix those things together is actually how you create the branding feel. And that was really interesting when it came to designing my website, because I said, okay, now I know kind of what I'm looking for as a percentage mixture of these colors. And it helps me turn certain colors up and turn certain colors down until I really got to what felt like the look and feel of Second Comma on a webpage.
Yeah. So my follow-up question to all of this is, has it been the conversation starter that you wanted it to be? I feel like I've heard you talk about it. People ask what's behind it. Have you had conversations with, random people or acquaintances or friends and family about it since you got this brand?
Yeah, it's super interesting. There seems to be some kind of age line. I haven't figured out the age, but above a certain age, people misread the logo and they think it says Second Comma. And I don't know why that is. That's an eyesight thing. I don't know. But under a certain age, everybody says, oh, Second Comma. That's really interesting. And so that's one piece that I think is interesting. But another thing is that it is really attention grabbing, as in a couple of weeks ago, I wound up sitting down at a coffee with somebody who, you trace it all through. I was at church wearing my polo that has my logo on it. He saw my polo, read the logo, Googled me online, found my website, found my social media, cold messaged me on LinkedIn and said, I don't know what this company is all about, but I really want to talk to you about it. And then we're sitting down having coffee and I'm explaining to him what I do and who I do it for and why I do it. And we just had a great conversation. He and I were texting earlier today. Like, I don't want to say we're friends, but we're friends now because some guy saw my logo. And even maybe an even crazier story is I was out of the country. I was in Antigua with my wife on vacation, had the logo on. We're at a very small resort. There's like 30 rooms at this resort. And so we were at dinner. I'm wearing my polo. The next morning, we're walking down to get breakfast. And this guy comes around the corner and he's like, Mark, Second Comma. he's got his arms way up in the air, like making a big Y. And he's like, dude, I love it. I said, what are you talking about? How do you know my name? And he actually saw the logo, read my entire website that night, finds me, knows my name because I'm introduced on my website. He knows everything about my company. We have a really good, 5-minute conversation. And that was really, really interesting. It's like people that I didn't even know had seen me could go online and be confronted with a branding and a messaging, and then come back to me and tell me they liked the ideas that were in my head that I never told them. That was fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the power of a brand, right? In another capacity of what I do is as a former teacher, I help coach teachers on starting their own businesses. And a question that always comes up is, do I need a logo? Do I need, this color palette that is so hard for me? Do I need to hire someone basically to help me come up with all of this stuff? I can't do it myself. And my answer is always, kind of somewhere in between. Like, no, you don't need it to get started. Don't be a barrier. Don't let it be a barrier. But on the flip side, if you do have the capacity or the budget or whatever it might be, and you can get a really great brand, I mean, this is a super powerful way to get your story out there and to make connections with people. And I think that's absolutely true for you. I think basically, Mark, we just need to get you in as many public spaces as possible with as much second comma swag as possible. And you'll just instantly be viral. So yeah, I really appreciate you just kind of walking us through what that branding process was like. And I'm so glad it was such a good experience for you.
Yeah, I think a little bit of advice that you didn't ask for and very non-expert opinion, but you don't have to have it figured out to do it, right?
Yeah.
The branding exercise, you just have to start. And
Yeah.
as you start, you'll figure out, oh, it's not that. It's
Yeah.
not that, right? You look at some fonts, look at some colors. You'll find stuff that's really ugly. That to you, not to everybody, right? Everybody's brand is to be them. But you'll go online, find a color palette generator, and just start mixing colors together automatically. And you'll see things and you'll say, that is ugly. And you'll see other things and you'll say, that is beautiful.
Right.
And you can start to learn. That's how I discovered electric salmon, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's not even called electric salmon. I just want to say electric salmon. I just want to say that. That's part of my brand. And then the same thing with fonts. You've got Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever. Just do the drop down and just start. Okay, that's too loopy. That'd be really hard to read at a distance. That's really blocky. I don't think that would print very well on a t-shirt. These are very simple statements, and you can start to cut out, as in go from a void, a nothing. Just put a wall up, put another wall up, draw yourself a box, figure out what's in the box, what's not in the box. What do I like? What do I not like? That'll get you pretty far.
Yeah.
Maybe that's helpful advice.
Yeah, that's super helpful advice. And I'd actually love to follow up with that because I always, similarly to colors, I always found it difficult to find which fonts pair well together because usually, you want 2, maybe 3 fonts that pair well together. Not always. Sometimes you can just have one. But I would find one font and then I would say, okay, this is like my main body text font. But then I do want another font that kind of stands out a little bit for my headers and things like that. I had no idea how to find fonts that paired well. Back when I was doing this, I just Googled, okay, I really like Poppins, as my body font. What's a header font that pairs well with that? And there's all these Google articles that gave, different suggestions. Now, I think you could probably even go into ChatGPT or something like that and ask it. And it might even give you some like custom, air quotes, recommendations. I think there are so many things that you can do to like start, as you said.
Yeah, and that's another piece that I discovered in this whole process. What I'm bad at is somebody else's job. Somebody else loves doing that. Somebody else loves getting all the way down to the hex code of the color palette that the person that they were talking to couldn't even articulate. That's what they wake up to do. That's their bread and butter. Somebody else loves having, 12,000 fonts on their computer, and they know the look and the feel of every single one and which ones go together. And they know all the unwritten rules and the inside baseball about fonts that I'm going to fall asleep in my own sentences. But somebody wakes up really excited about that. And if you just go online, that's kind of the beauty of the internet. You can go online and you can find those people for free, and they will tell you things in their brain for free.
Yeah.
But search for things that might not even make sense, as in color palettes that feel calm. That doesn't even sound like it would make sense, but you will get results.
Yeah.
right? Font pairings that seem professional. You'll get results for that. And then again, I like that. I don't like that. It is that. It is not that. And you just continue on that process. And eventually you will have your electric salmon and your very simplified font.
That's what we all want. We all want to find our electric salmon.
Oh, everybody needs electric salmon. It is such a great color.
I agree. It is a really great color. And it also really, I have to say, it really stands out in the financial advice industry as well. You know, you don't ever see that color. And I love that for you and for Second Comma.
Yes. I think one of the most helpful things I said to the designer, I said, I want people to walk in thinking, oh, this is a bank. And then when they get in and they're surrounded by it, I want them to doubt if they're in a bank, right? And I think that's where the electric salmon comes in. You're looking around, you're like, but this is like a business that handles money?
Yeah.
You know, like there's no lighthouse, there's no compass, there's no starfish, there's no people walking around on the beach. Where's the beige? Where's the regular blue? Where's the whatever that fidelity green? Where's those colors at? Right? It's
Right.
like I didn't want any of those. So again, that's what it's not. And then you can kind of find out what it is if you know what it's not.
Basically, you have, with one single color, you've communicated this idea. I am not your dad's financial planner. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That color was really important to me because when I stepped into the realm of financial planner, the average financial planner, I think they're 60 something. It's like mid 60s. And it keeps getting older. It's kind of a strange statistic. But when I stepped into the financial planning world, I wanted everyone to know that I wasn't a bogie, which is a boring old white guy. And electric salmon, I felt like was the key to that car to let everybody know this is Mark. He is not a boring old white guy. Or maybe not yet, right? Maybe eventually, but I'm going to ride that electric salmon as long as I can.
I mean, I think there's half of this you can control, right? The other half you can't quite control.
It's true. Yeah. One of them I can't change. One of them is inevitable. So
Right. But the first piece there, you always have control over that.
I'm working on it.
I love that. Yeah, I totally agree. So, okay, so you have all this branding stuff in place. I think it's about this point that our paths crossed, correct? And so I'll just explain a little bit about what our relationship is. So you came to me for website copy. So you became a client of mine first. As I'm writing your website, and we tacked on one other project after that, as I'm writing these, copy assets for you, I'm feeling in my brain all these kind of pings go off. I really like this guy. I really like his philosophies. I really like the way he talks about money and thinks about money. So I start talking to my husband about you. And I'm like, I really would love to schedule a meeting with him and maybe become clients of his. And so that's what we did. And so I don't even know how long it's been. Has it been over a year since we...
Yeah, it's been a little bit over a year since we started. Yep.
A little bit over a year. So you and I now, I talk fairly often, and we love being clients of Mark's. It's the best. So let's go back to when you came to me. Tell me about what you were looking for, and ultimately I ended up writing you a website and an ebook that you use as a lead magnet. And where I would really love to go is to understand how having those two big pieces of copy helped you then market your business in other ways.
Yes. So I came to you with a very incomplete strategy, as in, I believe what I handed you was 8 or 9 pages of bullet points, which I called...
It was more than that.
I just called it a spaghetti bowl of ideas. And it was as far as I could take it. And I knew that it was as far as I could take it. Every time that I tried to take the bullet points and put them into a paragraph, my brain shut down. 30 minutes passed and I didn't understand where the time had gone. But I had main concepts. There was like the bones, I guess, is what I brought to you. And that was from listening to a lot of marketing stuff and podcasts over years and years and years. Especially as I educated myself in the world of finance, I enjoyed the way certain things were said. I improved on certain things. I like metaphors. I like talking in analogies, examples, telling short stories to try to alliterate a tactic or a method or a purpose behind something. But that is what I can do. And what I was able to hand you, again, an expert in your field, I handed you my spaghetti bowl of ideas. You lined them all out, you organized them, and you knew what questions to ask me to take it from A all the way to Z. And that was really wonderful to be able to meet somebody in their field who knew how to take my best and unfortunately my worst, and turn it into something that could be what is now secondcomma.com. And that was really cool. I knew who I was trying to talk to, and I knew why I wanted to talk to them, but I didn't know the words to fill in all the gaps that I had created. What were the rest of your questions? I've forgotten now.
Well, then let's talk about the ebook as well. So we had the website, yeah, and I just have to say, you were such a fun client for me to work with because you came to me and you said, I love storytelling. And, my brain goes, yay, he loves storytelling. That's what I love. And I don't have to convince him of why it's such a powerful, strategy. So that was fantastic. So then we finished your website. Your website's up. Then we had an ebook that you wanted as well. And so tell me about why you wanted that ebook and what you felt like that was going to help you with.
Yes. So the ebook was because I felt like the website was incomplete, but I felt like it was asking the website to do too much to try to take the ebook verbiage and lessons and build it into the website. So the website said, these are literally the types or the titles of the pages. Second comma, meet Mark. What does Mark do? Why does he do it? Who does he do it for? And then there's a pricing structure on there so that somebody can educate themselves there. But what I wanted in the ebook was if somebody reads the whole website and they say, well, I could just do this on my own. I could just do this myself, right? Because unfortunately, I think we're in a strange time in history where people think they're 2.5 YouTube videos and 3 TikToks away from being a financial planner. And that's just not true.
Yes.
And so I wanted something to confront them in the nicest, best way. But I wanted something that would, okay, you read my website, you leave, you go do 18 minutes of YouTube videos and TikToks, and you realize, whoa, this pool is a lot deeper than I thought it was. I wanted something else to give them, another resource. And the ebook really fit the bill. But then I wanted the ebook to be a little punchy, right? I'm a little cheeky in the way that I talk. And in talking with you again, it was like, well, the reason for the ebook is like, what were you thinking, right? What genuinely, what were you thinking? The book was really to confront people so you come to my website, you leave, you try to do this on your own, and you realize that you can't. But what you were thinking you could do on your own was because you thought there were a bunch of shortcuts, right? This 30-year path, you thought that you could skip a bunch of steps that were really important. So the ebook, I was like, why don't we just call it "What the Heck Are You Thinking?" As in, what were you thinking? Why did you think that this was possible? So then the ebook is following a fictional couple, my ideal client avatar, people in their 30s, young family, and it's walking through like poking holes in their financial situation, looking at retirement, life insurance, estate planning. What happens if the earning spouse passes away? What happens if the stay-at-home spouse passes away? Because that's exactly who I'm trying to talk to, is single income families where somebody has decided to stay home and take care of the family. And I wanted to expose or just bring shine a light on how exposed these people are should something happen. So even in there, one of the whole pages is just looking at their budget and saying this is a very conservative family budget-wise, right? They're not spending lavishly, but if something happens and something has to be cut out because lifestyle has to change, I wanted to show how shaky that whole situation was. And the book shows, holy cow, right? If you're already lean, that doesn't mean you've won the game. It means your situation could have its own weaknesses. And we try to point those out in the ebook. But it's just walking through that story and saying it's essentially 5 iterations of thinking they're doing it right, not knowing the dangers of an incomplete plan, and then exposing those dangers. And then we walk through it's estate planning, life insurance, retirement, investing, and taxes. And all of those are going to sit on top of this idea of household cash flow and managing the household cash flow. And all through there, it's just, hey, if you think this is really hard, you can reach out to me. But I wanted to make it easier for people to reach out, but I didn't want to make it super salesy. I didn't want that sleazy feeling to ever enter into it. So it does require some effort on the reader's part. But again, I'm looking for people that are motivated. So I didn't want to complete the circle for them. I wanted them to have to take a step and reach out to me so that I could see their motivation. But all of these things are just design elements inside of a PDF, right? But it is pretty crazy that you can download a PDF from our website, scan a QR code, and book an appointment with me if you find yourself motivated by what you read.
Ooh, I love the QR. I actually don't think I knew that within the ebook, your designer, who is the same person who did all of your branding, correct?
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park with the logo. And so when I got back the ebook verbiage, I didn't just want white page, black text. I wanted this thing, to look like the world's best presentation. And so
Yeah.
I went back, paid the design fee for this, and got it turned into like a really, really beautiful book
Yeah.
that I love. I wanted something that I was proud to show people. I never wanted a company, a logo, a theology. I didn't want anything that I would, turn around to people and kind of like hesitate my hand as I showed it to them. I wanted things where I could say like, I'm really proud of this, and you don't have to like it, but I'm really proud of this.
Yeah.
And that motivation was able to yield some pretty cool stuff.
You get some pretty cool stuff. I will say your ebook in particular, in its final form, is one of the things that I am also most proud of having a hand in, even though I had nothing to do with the design, but it's one of those pieces that I'm like, I'm really proud of this. So I love that QR code at the end. I think that's a really kind of hot tip for your lead magnet is at the end, don't just link to your calendar that someone can like click over to the link. Make it so easy for them. What if they're reading it on their phone or whatever it might be? I actually don't know if that's how QR codes work. I don't know if you can get there from just reading it on your phone.
You can't scan something on your own screen.
That's right.
But if you had it on your computer screen, you could scan it on the computer
You
screen.
could
So
scan it. Right.
yeah.
Okay, so actually, one other thing I want to say here before I ask you another question is the particular design company. I actually have a meeting with a member of an employee or he might be the owner of that company, Derek.
Okay.
Do you know
I like
Derek?
Derek.
Yeah, I actually am going to meet with him on Friday because I recently just wrapped up another ebook with another financial advisor who I know you know. We actually talked to a couple of different designers, he and I did, about what to do with this ebook. His ebook is a little bit longer than yours. And so some of the designers that we were talking to, we're really kind of unsure of what to do with this ebook. And so I'm really, really glad that he talked to you and you were able to recommend. I'm just going to say the name of this company is Honey Street. And because they came to this project with him with so much confidence about, what he could do and how they would make it look and things like that. And I think that is that's what you want when you work with a company, right?
Yeah. So when you're working with other companies, and this is something I was thinking about earlier, just mentally preparing for our podcast. When I meet with experts, I will purposefully say things that I know are incorrect because I'm testing them. I want to know, do they know what I know?
Mm-hmm.
And are they willing to go toe to toe with me in a nice, polite way? But I will say things purposefully that are incorrect, hoping that I understand like who they are, their character, how do they operate. If I am wrong, how do they tell me I'm wrong? Right? Are they like mean about it?
Yeah, right.
If I'm wrong 3 times, do they get exhausted? Right? Because some people find me exhausting, and I understand that. But I want to give people the space to just say like, actually, I don't really want to work with you. Right? You're all about this electric salmon. I hate that color. Right? I try to make sure that when I'm working with somebody, it's a really good fit because that makes me very happy to pay their fee. And I think that's what we all really want. And so something like a branding exercise, there's so many financial planners that are in the middle of these multi-month, multi-quarter, multi-year rebranding efforts. I don't want to ever rebrand. I don't want to brand one time, and I want to be this brand forever. And I was willing to put in the work up front to make something that I never wanted to rebrand.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to. It took longer, the initial time, but I moved through it. I found companies that I was really happy to work with, and I would recommend people do the same. Don't try to get through this the cheapest, fastest way because you might not wind up with what you're actually wanting to represent on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
This is the end of the first part of this 2-parter episode series with Mark Hansen. Next week, we're diving into how Mark developed his content strategy, his process for creating client avatars, and how he leverages AI tools like ChatGPT to streamline his marketing efforts. Thank you so much for tuning into part 1, and I hope you enjoyed the first part of my conversation with Mark as much as I did. We'll see you next week for part 2.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.